The morning sun had barely climbed above the skyline when one careless accusation destroyed a father's entire world. In less than 10 minutes, a hardworking single dad lost the job that kept food on his daughter's table, while the woman responsible walked away believing she had done the right thing. She never imagined that only a few days later, stranded alone on a deserted roadside with no one willing to stop, the only person who would pull over was the very man whose life she had shattered. Sometimes life has a strange way of revealing who people truly are, and sometimes the greatest act of kindness comes from the deepest wound. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel Hardworking Dad. Your support helps us continue bringing heartfelt stories that remind us humanity still exists. It was a bright Tuesday morning, and the city buzzed with its usual rhythm. Parents hurried their children toward school, office workers rushed across sidewalks with coffee cups in hand, and delivery vans filled the streets. Among them drove 38-year-old Rowan Mercer, a devoted single father who had spent the last 7 years raising his 9-year-old daughter, Hazel, alone after losing his wife to a sudden illness. Every sunrise began the same way. He braided Hazel's hair as neatly as he could despite never mastering the skill, packed her lunch with handwritten notes that wished her luck at school, and reminded her every single morning that no matter what happened during the day, she was the best part of his life. Rowan worked as a city bus driver, a job that demanded patience, responsibility, and endless hours. The pay wasn't generous, but it covered rent, groceries, school supplies, and Hazel's weekly art classes, which she loved more than anything else. He rarely bought anything for himself because every spare dollar was carefully saved for his daughter's future. His co-workers admired his quiet determination. Passengers often noticed his warm smile and calm attitude, even during traffic jams and stressful shifts. That same morning, a successful corporate consultant named Maris Holloway boarded Rowan's bus after spilling coffee on her expensive blazer during a rushed commute. She was already frustrated from missing an important conference call and finding her usual parking garage completely full. Every inconvenience felt like another weight pressing against her already stressful day. As the crowded bus rolled through downtown, an elderly passenger suddenly stumbled when the driver braked to avoid a child chasing a ball into the street. Rowan reacted instantly, stopping safely before a tragedy could happen. Although no one was seriously hurt, Maris lost her balance, dropping her laptop onto the floor. The corner cracked, and the screen flickered. Anger replaced reason. Without taking time to understand what had happened, Maris stormed to the transit office after leaving the bus. She filed a formal complaint, insisting the driver had been reckless and endangered passengers. She spoke confidently, supported by photographs of her damaged computer and emotional descriptions of the incident. Her professional reputation made her complaint carry unusual weight. Management, already under pressure from recent public criticism, decided to act quickly instead of investigating carefully. By late afternoon, Rowan was called into the office. He explained that he had braked to save a child crossing unexpectedly. Traffic camera footage had not yet been reviewed, but the company suspended him immediately while conducting its investigation. 2 days later, eager to avoid legal complications and negative publicity, they terminated his employment. Rowan walked out carrying nothing more than a small cardboard box containing family photographs, a coffee mug Hazel had painted in school, and years of faithful service reduced to a brief meeting that lasted less than 15 minutes. That evening, he struggled to smile while helping Hazel finish her homework. She noticed his silence immediately. Children often recognize heartbreak long before adults admit it. Money disappeared frighteningly fast. Bills stacked higher each week. Rowan sold his old guitar, canceled internet service, and quietly skipped meals so Hazel would never notice there was less food in the refrigerator. Every night, after she fell asleep, he searched endlessly for jobs, only to receive rejection after rejection. Employers wanted experience, recommendations, or younger applicants. Some simply never replied. Meanwhile, Maris continued her successful career. She occasionally remembered the driver she'd reported but convinced herself the company must have found additional reasons for dismissing him. She believed professionals made decisions based on evidence. Surely one complaint couldn't ruin someone's life. Weeks passed. One Saturday afternoon, after attending a business seminar in a neighboring county, Maris decided to take a scenic highway home. The summer sky was brilliant blue, sunlight stretched across open fields, and everything seemed peaceful until her car suddenly sputtered, lost power, and rolled to a stop beside an isolated stretch of road. She reached for her phone. No signal. She opened the hood despite knowing almost nothing about engines. Heat poured upward, but every wire and component looked equally mysterious. Cars sped past without slowing. Some drivers glanced briefly before continuing on. Minutes became nearly an hour. The confidence she carried into every boardroom slowly dissolved into helplessness. Then, in the distance, an aging pickup truck slowed. It pulled carefully onto the shoulder. The driver stepped out wearing worn jeans, work boots covered in dust, and a faded construction company shirt. It was Rowan. After losing his bus driving job, he'd accepted temporary construction work despite the lower pay and physically exhausting hours. His hands had become rougher, his face more weathered, but his gentle eyes remained unchanged. For a brief second, recognition flashed across both their faces. Embarrassment flooded Maris. She expected anger. She expected him to drive away. She expected him to remind her exactly what she'd done. Instead, Rowan quietly examined the engine, retrieved a toolbox from his truck, and began working beneath the hood without saying a single bitter word. Sweat rolled down his forehead under the blazing afternoon sun. Nearly 40 minutes later, he identified a damaged hose, repaired it using spare supplies he carried for emergencies, and refilled enough coolant to get her safely into town. He refused payment. Before leaving, he simply reminded her to visit a mechanic before driving long distances again. As Rowan climbed back into his truck, Maris noticed a child's colorful drawing taped inside the passenger side window. It showed a smiling father holding hands with a little girl beneath bright yellow sunshine. Across the top were uneven handwritten words. "My dad is my hero." The drawing stayed in her thoughts the entire drive home. That evening curiosity led her to search public records and local news archives. She soon discovered the accident report from the day she'd filed her complaint. Traffic camera footage, reviewed only after Rowan had already been dismissed, clearly showed a small child darting into the street. The emergency brake had prevented what almost certainly would have been a fatal collision. Rowan had done exactly what any responsible driver should have done. He had saved a life. It had punished courage. Sleep became impossible. For the first time in years, Maris questioned how often she'd judged people before understanding their circumstances. She realized she'd allowed stress, assumptions, and pride to become more powerful than compassion. The following Monday, she requested a meeting with the transit company's executive director. She brought copies of the traffic footage, her original complaint, and a written statement accepting complete responsibility for her false assumptions. She admitted she had acted emotionally rather than fairly and insisted the company reconsider Rowan's dismissal. Management reluctantly acknowledged serious mistakes had been made. A formal review reopened. Within days, Rowan received an unexpected phone call asking him to return. The company apologized publicly, restored his position with full back pay, and implemented new investigation procedures so no employee would ever again lose a job before all evidence had been examined. When Rowan returned to driving his familiar route, many regular passengers welcomed him with applause. Some had heard what happened through local news coverage. Others simply remembered the driver who always greeted everyone with kindness regardless of how difficult his own life became. Hazel waited at home that afternoon wearing the biggest smile her father had seen in months. She hugged him tighter than ever before. For her, it wasn't about the paycheck. It meant life finally felt normal again. Several weeks later, Maris quietly attended a neighborhood charity event supporting children of single parents. She volunteered anonymously, helping distribute school supplies and backpacks. Across the park she spotted Rowan and Hazel laughing together while painting wooden birdhouses. Their happiness wasn't perfect because life never truly returns exactly as it was. But hope had returned. As the afternoon ended, Hazel proudly handed Maris one of her paintings. It showed a long road beneath a golden daytime sky. Two vehicles stood beside each other on the roadside while sunlight poured through the clouds. At the bottom she had carefully written, "Kind people always find the right road." Maris framed that painting in her office. Not as decoration. As a reminder. Every difficult decision afterward began with one question she asked herself. Do I know the whole story? Because she had learned that one mistaken judgment can destroy months, years, even entire lives, while one unexpected act of kindness can begin putting broken pieces back together again. Rowan never became wealthy. He never sought revenge. He never demanded recognition. His greatest achievement remained the same simple goal he'd carried from the beginning, giving his daughter a reason to believe good people still existed. Ironically, the woman who had unintentionally taken everything from him became one of the people most transformed by his compassion. She started mentoring young professionals, encouraging them never to rush toward conclusions and always to remember that behind every uniform, every title, and every stranger is a human being carrying battles no one else can see. Years later, Hazel graduated at the top of her class. During her speech, she thanked her father for teaching her that strength isn't measured by how loudly someone fights back but by how gently they choose to treat others after being hurt. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. The applause lasted several minutes. And somewhere among the crowd stood Maris, quietly wiping tears from her eyes, knowing she had once been the reason that remarkable father almost lost everything. Yet he had still stopped when she needed help. He had still chosen kindness over bitterness. He had still proven that true character is revealed not when life is easy, but when every reason to be angry exists and compassion wins anyway. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with friends and family, subscribe to Hardworking Dad, and tell us in the comments how kindness or forgiveness has changed your life. Your support inspires us to keep sharing stories that matter. Red Heart special request, comment below with the words, "Kindness always finds the way," if you believe one act of compassion can change someone's life forever. As the sun slowly dipped toward the horizon, Rowan and Hazel walked home beneath a warm golden daytime sky, hand in hand, knowing that life's hardest roads sometimes lead to the most beautiful destinations. They had learned that forgiveness does not erase pain, but it opens the door to healing, and that the strongest hearts are often the ones that choose mercy when revenge would be easier. In a world quick to judge and slow to understand, one father's quiet decision to stop beside a stranded stranger became the moment that changed two lives forever, proving that kindness, no matter how small, never truly disappears. It simply waits for the right moment to come back when it is needed most.